to want to get into the entertainment industry. But I didn't start there. Just to speak a little bit about my journey, a lot of it has to do with just, Andre, you said it best, stubborn, just wouldn't give up, just would not give up. Do or do not, there is no try. Yoda said it best. I used to be an English teacher a long time ago in Thailand. I was not a great English teacher, but I thought, you know what? All of my drawing on the side I'm doing, I'm just going to try. I'm just going to give it a shot. So I applied to the Vancouver Film School, got in, and realized really quickly that I was not the best animator in class. I was studying 2D animation, and I just thought, I'm just going to put every ounce of energy into this and do my best, and realized that that really carried me further than even my talent at first. And then I got better and better as I went along. And some of my teachers really helped me get my first job as a commercial animator in the San Francisco Bay Area. Just knowing, hey, this guy's crazy enough that he'll just try him out. He's crazy enough, he'll work hard. And sure enough, getting a job, just taking notes, being a collaborator with everyone, having a good attitude. I know those get tossed around as cliche things, but it's so important. It's the most important thing. And I'll say that probably several times while I'm talking to you here today, or if you talk to me at some other point, it's just a really big deal. But for example, one of my directors, when I was working on a commercial with pencil and paper in the 90s, long time ago, I showed him what I was doing, and he came and he sat down and he said, so this is you're done with this? And I said, yep, that's I maybe, what do you think? And he took the piece of paper off the pegs, crumbled it up, and he put it in his mouth, and he turned and looked at me, and he just shook his head, and he walked away. I'm like, oh my goodness. So but nevertheless, I just worked hard and just always just did my best. And he's my good buddy now, and it's all fine. But just being able to take notes, whether extreme like that or hopefully more even keel criticism, has been something through my whole career. I worked for a while in commercial animation, excuse me, and ended up starting my own animation studio with a couple of my buddies. And that was really a challenge, a lot of hard work. We were, not only were we interfacing with clients for the first time, but also, just finding a way to get things done on a shoestring budget. And we were the janitors and the coffee makers and everything. And it was an awesome experience. One of the coolest things through that time is I got to meet Dave Filoni, and we became buddies. And I had an opportunity to join the crew on Clone Wars early on, and it just didn't work at the time for either side, as I was starting my studio and the Clone Wars crew was coming together. But it was always one of those regrets, like, oh, finally I could work on Star Wars. But I just kept in touch and kept working hard, and over the years was able to finally get an opportunity to work on Star Wars Rebels, which started my now 5-6 year career working at Lucasfilm. And it's awesome. It's like speaking of collaboration and working hard, that's how this whole team is. We just love what we do. We support each other, and it makes a big difference. It makes us tell the stories that we want to tell. It's really great. And so to speak a little bit about the storytelling process, I selected a couple of images that were some of the highlights of my time working on Rebels. This first image in the top left, it was crazy when I knew I was going to work on Rebels. Sat down at my desk, got my script first day after orientation, and I opened the script, and the first word at the top of my script was Darth Vader, and I had to close the script and kind of step away and have a little bit of a moment. And I still feel like that all the time because I just love it so much. But got to work on some really, really great episodes of Rebels, and also worked on Resistance and Forces of Destiny, and now doing some other fun new things. The story process is really important to us because even though essentially we have space wizards in our show, it's really all about the character. It's all about the emotions. And so we start with ideas that like Andre and Amy are talking about, that we would work really closely with design as in the very early stages as we're getting the scripts going. A lot of times design is happening too, which is crazy, but is definitely the way we do it sometimes. And when we take our script, another thing about Lucasfilm, a lot of studios are like this, but we don't stop our story at the script. That's really the beginning, because the scripts evolve and things change as we start putting together our reel. We use digital tools, essentially a proprietary software that's a previs tool. And so we have digital characters and cameras and sets and props, and we approach it the way Dave wants us to do it, in a very live action way, which is how you can do it if you have digital assets. and all of it is about getting to the heart of the character, what is happening, and how we're telling these stories. Is so fun and really rewarding, but a lot of work, because we will build reels and then we will scrutinize them and we'll break them down and we'll rebuild our reels, and we're just constantly trying to get at what's the best version of these stories. And it's a blast, and I'm honored and humbled to be part of this team. And thank you so much for letting me ramble for a few minutes. I would like to introduce you next to my buddy Nate Villanueva, one of our episodic directors at Lucasfilm.
Hello, I'm Nate Villanueva, episodic director at Lucasfilm. Just a little backstory about me. Path is a little weird. Star Wars, I like Star Wars. Star Wars is cool. I grew up more as a Ninja Turtles kid, I'd say. I grew up in San Diego. I drew a lot of Ninja Turtles. Grew up watching animated films like Toy Story, Lion King, which, kind of got me interested in animation. And then as a teen, I kind of petered off away from animation, kind of got into other things. Was a bit of a slacker, bit of a burnout. But growing up in a Filipino household, the expectation was to go to college, get a degree, preferably not in animation. But that was kind of something that I started to become passionate about. So I really had to convince my folks that that was something that I really wanted to do. And in a way, I had to convince myself also. But I eventually got their blessing and was able to go to the Art Institute in San Diego around 2004, 2007. The funny thing is that honestly, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I don't think I did enough research at the time. I liked animation, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work. So I really found that out once I started going to school. But I did fall more in love with it as time kind of passed during my studies. Mostly through my peers. Like, I learned so much from just the people around me. That my education was good. I learned a lot about modeling. I learned animation, illustration, and then I eventually centered my focus into CG animation. I wanted to be a feature animator. Work at Disney or Pixar. All the big studios. But yeah, I just kind of continued my education from there. I mean, I just kept learning from peers through internets, blogs, podcasts, whatever I can get my hands on. That's kind of what I wanted to get into. I got a degree. My folks were happy about me getting my degree. Yeah. I started my career path in video games as an animation intern at Seven Studios. But I still wanted to be a CG animator. That was kind of my focus. So I kept kind of working on reels, trying to get feedback. But at the same time, I was working in video games, and I continued working in video games, for a couple years, and kind of eventually grew a little disillusioned by becoming a CG animator. And then a lot of things happened in my life, and I kind of fell out of that dream, and then eventually transitioned into story. And through that transition, I met a lot of incredible people that mentored me along that story path. And through those people, I was given like incredible opportunities to be a storyboard artist at studios like Film Roman, DreamWorks, Bento Box, before eventually moving up to the Bay Area to work at Lucasfilm as a story artist. And the funny thing is that I started on Rebels, and originally we were doing kind of this 2D boarding process, pretty traditional 2D boards in Toon Boom. As time kind of grew on, we started diving more into kind of 3D. Dave was big into, working with 3D assets. And then eventually we kind of transitioned into this full-blown previs 3D pipeline, which you know, I just kind of went with. You know, you just kind of go with the flow of things, and I was really game in learning that workflow. And so it's like the big irony was, like, I originally wanted to be a CG animator. Kind of gave up on that dream, and then went into story at Lucasfilm, where I eventually kind of became a 3D story artist, which eventually is kind of like, it was kind of the best of both worlds. I was doing this kind of rough CG animation, plus like all the fun, juicy, dramatic stuff of being like a story artist. And you know, I love, I love it. You know, so I've stuck with it for 7 years. And yeah, I've learned so much at the studio. I've met so many incredible people, like Dave Filoni, Brad Rao, you know, Andre, ABC, Athena. I've learned so much from them, and I just, you know, I just want to continue learning stuff from them. Yeah, that's kind of led me to eventually transitioning into becoming a episodic director. And I guess a little bit about, you know, my position as an episodic director. I manage and collaborate with a team of story artists to translate the final script into an animatic blueprint for an episode. And within our 3D previs environment, I have to work with various departments, Paul in digital assets, Keith in animation, Joel in lighting. I have to kind of work with all of these different departments, and get, you know, kind of get the info and get the assets that I need, so that I can give my team, you know, the best jumpstart into, you know, getting work on their sequences. Like all the beautiful characters and backgrounds that ABC and Andre kind of work on, I eventually get as proxy assets that I bring in, that me and the story artist bring in into our proprietary software, and we create sequences. We shoot it, we edit, and we send our sequences to editorial that, you know, we eventually just cut up. We cut up and turn into a full-blown episode. Yeah. The majority of my time at Lucasfilm has been on Rebels and Resistance. I was a director on Clone Wars also, but I'd have to say my proudest achievement was working on all 4 seasons of Rebels. Like that was a pretty big, pretty big deal for me to be on something from the ground up and to see it all the way through to the very end. That was kind of like a bucket list thing for me. Yeah. So, and specifically, I was able to board this final moment with Ezra, you know, his big send off. And it was a culmination of the storytelling and character development throughout all 4 seasons, all leading up to this very moment. Is kind of is incredible to be a part of. I've spent so much time with these characters. I couldn't help but get emotional when I was working on this scene. It was kind of like, oh man, like this is it. Like this is kind of the end. That was just really awesome to be a part of. And that's always the dragon that I'm chasing when I'm kind of working on these moments. Like that's kind of the meat and potatoes that like I try to achieve, like when working in story. Yeah, that's pretty much my journey. So I am going to introduce you to TORI New, associate storyboard artist. Yeah.
Hi everyone. I'm TORI. A bit of background about me is I grew up in Michigan and Minnesota, and I love telling little stories in like worlds as a kid. And my parents didn't want to pay for cable, but we did have internet. So you know what's free on the internet in the early 2010s? that's anime. So I just watched every single anime I could get my hands on. Like I'm like one of those people that would like go and like look up directors and I'm like on the cork board and everything kind of person. And also a lot of my artistic journey from a young age was shaped by online art communities, which I'm sure many of you relate to. I was able to have the access and financial privilege to attend CalArts out of high school, as well as receive training and mentorships from various internships, which were incredibly valuable to me. I've been at Lucasfilm for a year now as an associate storyboard artist, and it is my first studio job. I did not expect to be working here. I was unemployed about 8 months between when my internship finished, and Lucasfilm was like part of the pool of studios that I was applying to just to see what stuck. And I didn't know what I was going to expect coming in. I didn't watch Star Wars prior to coming here. Like my interests in media are like anime and Asian New Wave films. But coming to the company, I've learned so much from my colleagues, like more than I did at school. And I also really appreciate Nate, my director, for trusting me with my unconventional perspectives on storytelling. And I found that there's a lot to love about Clone Wars as I started watching it, particularly the characters and their interpersonal relationships, which is just what I enjoy most in bringing to my work here. Yeah, and here I would like to segue into our trailer for Star Wars Resistance. And with that, I'm gonna hand it off to Paul.
Amazing.
Thank you, Tori. That was awesome. I love that trailer. Yeah, my name is Paul Zinnis, and I'm the Director of Digital Assets here at Lucasfilm Animation. And I've been with the company, I think, 14 years. Actually, I think it's this week is my 14th anniversary here. Now, in general, all of the characters, all the creatures, all the props, all the vehicles and environments that you see on the screen in one of our shows, those are all digital assets. They're 3D models that have been built and textured in the computer so that we can then animate them and then have them rendered to create the final shots. And my role is to take the designs that people like Amy and Andre and the concept artists create and to transform those 2D designs into 3D working assets. And so that's what I do here. And my career started about 25 years ago. And with my first job at LucasArts Entertainment, which was George Lucas's video game company. And I started as a 3D artist, and I worked on games like Grim Fandango, Shadows of the Empire, Racer. And it was an incredible job experience. I mean, to have that be your first job out of school was just amazing. I really was super excited about it. It was a great company. It was Star Wars. It was George Lucas. We had great projects. And I quickly climbed the ladder to become a lead artist. But as good as it was, after about 5 years, I sort of got the itch to do something new. And as it happened at about that time, the creator of Grim Fandango at LucasArts, he left to form his own company called Double Fine. And he asked me to join him, which I did. And Double Fine, I mean, talk about complete opposites compared to LucasArts. LucasArts was stable, it was corporate, it was had big offices, had nice workspaces, it was well funded, you had good projects. Double Fine, on the other hand, was literally in a garage below street level. It was in the worst part of town. It was an alley. It was in an alley with drug dealers, and there were needles on the ground. There were rats in the studio. And to top it off, when it rained, the studio would flood with raw sewage. So it was sort of gross. But at the same time, it was actually really exciting. It was new. We were a startup. It was sort of the .com, hype time. and we were working with Microsoft as our backer, and we were working on a marquee project for the upcoming Xbox. So it was pretty exciting. The project we were working on was a game called Psychonauts. But it was a startup, and it was unorganized, and it was chaotic. We quickly went into 80 to 90-hour work weeks. We were actually a couple years behind schedule at one point, and there was absolutely no work-life balance. So while it was fun for a while, it just wasn't really sustainable. And so actually I needed to find something new. And at about this time, I got a call from a friend who worked at Tippett Studio where Athena worked. And he told me that there was a position that I might be qualified for. So I interviewed and I got the job. But the thing is, I had no experience in visual effects. Tippett Studio is a visual effects and animation company in Berkeley, California, and I had no experience in visual effects. And so I went from basically like a department head to the lowest person on the ladder. And so I was basically starting all over again. It was a huge leap of faith for me to do this, but I loved it. It was a totally different environment. It was collaborative, it was supportive. It was something I hadn't really experienced in the video game industry. And I got to work on great projects like I worked on the third Matrix movie, I worked on Hellboy, Constantine, Charlotte's Web, a bunch of commercials. And as good as it was, and as much as I liked that place, I couldn't really afford to stay there because the salary just wasn't enough to make ends meet to live in the Bay Area. And I needed to find something else. And again, as it happens, I got a call from a friend who was working at Lucasfilm Animation already. And he calls him up and he says, "Hey, Paul, there's this position coming up. We think you would be perfect for it. HR is waiting for your call." And I'm like, okay, it doesn't usually happen like this. But I called HR up. I had my interview on Friday and I had my offer on Monday. And again, to be honest, it doesn't usually happen like that, but when it does, it's pretty nice. And then for the image that I selected that I think I'm most proud of, this is an image from the Clone Wars from season 2. So it's about 10 or 12 years old. And it came from an episode that featured the Zilla Beast, which you see here. And why it's important to me is because you have to remember that when George conceived of the Clone Wars, he already owned the world's premier visual effects company, Industrial Light and Magic. And he could have easily just passed the show to ILM, and they would have produced a technically perfect show from the start, for sure, right? But instead, he created a completely new company, brought together a completely new crew to work on a new show and to create a new pipeline. So we were starting from scratch. And to be honest, some of the early episodes, they leave, something to be desired. Sometimes there are a lot of things that we see in those early episodes that we would certainly not let pass now, such as like blurry textures or bad models. But George stuck with us. And then at the start of season 2, we got the scripts for the Zillbeast episodes. And it's basically a Godzilla-type creature rampaging through a city, destroying it. And it was so ambitious that we had to start planning on how to build this creature a year and a half in advance. It was a giant creature. We had far shots. We had ultra close-up shots. We had characters running on the surface of the creature while it's moving, like you see here with Yoda. And it was a huge amount of work. It was a lot of research, a lot of collaboration, but we pulled it off. I think those episodes look great. And I think they're important because I think they signaled to everyone that Lucasfilm Animation had basically arrived as a studio and that we could handle pretty much anything that was thrown at us. So that's why I think it's important. I think I'm out of time. So I am going to pass this off to our animation director, Keith Kellogg.
Hey guys, I'm Keith Kellogg. I'm currently the animation director at Lucasfilm Animation. And, like a lot of the people on the panel who you've heard talk, I also am a huge fan of Star Wars. But my real, sort of key beginning, honestly, was when I saw the movie Jurassic Park in 1993. So I'm dating myself a little bit, but You know, when I saw those dinosaurs move on the screen for the first time and like just saw what could be accomplished, my jaw just dropped. And I was kind of like, there's a way you could do this like as a job. Like I could maybe do this and make some money and, you know, kind of, it would just be one of the greatest things. So, you know, I'd always loved art and technology. So I thought this might be a good path and a good blend of things that I really like to do. So I started going about trying to figure out how to do that. I went to school at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, got a BFA in computer art. And while I was at school, I thought I was doing pretty well. You know, UMass was a big school, but very small into computer animation and things as it was, you know, kind of just starting up. And I wasn't exactly sure. So, you know, decided that what I wanted to do was go to Hollywood and kind of work in big movies and things like that. So packed myself up and went out to Hollywood and tried to see what we could do over there, and you know, ended up actually landing in the San Francisco Bay Area to start with. And I started shopping my reel around, and let me tell you, it did not go well. And you know, I've got rejection letter after rejection letter. Every studio you can think of. I mean, you know, I would basically send out all my reels to all these different studios, and I think I lost more money in how many reels I sent out than anything else. But just, it got to the point where like my girlfriend at the time, who's actually now my wife, she was hiding the rejection letters that were coming back, just so I didn't have to see them. And I mean, it's just all about persistence, I think. And, you know, I decided, you know, I'm going to try and go down to SIGGRAPH for this one last year and see what I can find down there. And I was lucky enough to sort of get a little bit of a tryout at Centropolis Pictures at the time. And, you know, they were trying out for Stuart Little. And I did a little animation test and I didn't get it. But while I was down there, I asked them, I was like, is there anything else you guys need? Is there anything else, you know, possibly that you're hiring for? And they mentioned Match Move. And at the time, I honestly didn't even know what Match Move was. Like, I was like, all right, Match Move. I'm going to go back and I'm going to learn what Match Move is. And I went back and really learned how to do 3D camera tracking, basically, and sent them another reel, probably just like within like a month or so after trying to figure it out, and got hired. And, you know, started on my first movie, which was The Patriot, at Centropolis. And, you know, from there, you know, animation is always what I really wanted to do. So I kept working after hours, actually, with their animation supervisor at the time, Kelvin Lee. And he helped me we did a little short animation, and I kind of kept pushing things and was able to eventually work my way up to be a character animator. And then Centropolis closed. And after they closed, I, you know, was fortunate enough throughout sort of different things. And I think Brad brought this up really well, is that like, you know, just trying hard work and constantly trying to learn, always trying to learn. I had learned enough about like TD and rigging and things to be able to get a job doing that. So I got hired at Sony doing rigging and TD work. And, you know, honestly, I didn't love it, but it was a great job and I was still doing what I wanted to do. But again, I kept working my way back into character animation. And, you know, eventually, you know, they took me on as a full-time character animator, and then started working, you know, pushing myself up to being a lead, an animation supervisor, and eventually, you know, where I am now at Lucasfilm, being the animation director. And, you know, I think if you look, I'll show you some images of some movies that I've worked on in the past. You know, different things from my career, all of them, you know, proud of in some way or another. Whether it was visual effects, working in performance capture with Robert Zemeckis, working in just full-on animated films, or now working, at Lucasfilm on an animated television series. One thing that I'm responsible for mainly is basically any motion that you see on screen. So of all our shows that come through, any shot, any motion from any of the episodes, I've looked at, approved, given notes on throughout. So, we work, as Athena was mentioning, a big waterfall schedule, which means we have multiple episodes in production at one time. So at any given day, I'll basically be reviewing roughly 60 to 100 shots and giving back notes to our overseas team. It took a little while to get used to not having a team locally here. But I think, with the way animation is growing so globally, I've been working with overseas teams now for 10 plus years. And, there's talent everywhere. And it's really inspiring and amazing to see the level of commitment and dedication that all of our overseas animators have, plus all of our team locally here has, to just this incredible franchise. It really it's kind of awe-inspiring every day, to be honest. And, I chose quickly 3 images. This first image was basically of Ezra standing there as the giant Fear-Knock mom comes over the top of the cliff. And this was that animation that I actually got a chance to animate on. And I wanted to kind of give the team a touchstone sort of for what, kind of things we were looking for in these creatures. So there are times where I will do, key shots or cycles or, different things to kind of give them as a starting point to kind of work with. And this was one of those examples of that. The next slide is basically, this was from our other show, Resistance. And Resistance, I really loved Resistance. I was honestly really sad when it went away as an animator, and it was just such great fun to be able to push our style a little bit more. We were able to really push expressions and really push, we got some squash and stretch and some cartoony arcs and curves in our rigs and things. And, this example I just really love, because even though you'd have to frame by frame through to really see this, and there's a couple of examples of it throughout the show. So if anybody else wants to try and frame by frame through and find other examples, that'd be great, because they're there. But this was sort of an example where we had Kaz with the 4 arms, and it was something that was done old 2D style back Warner Brothers days and things, and it was something I wanted to see if we could do in our television, budget and production schedule, and we were able to pull it off. And it was something I was really, really proud of, being able to sort of get that look in, our actual television show. And I mean, you look at ABC and team did such a great job with the direction, and Joel with the lighting, and this style was just, I think it was really important to all of us, because it was stretched us. It was something we hadn't done before. And so for all of us, me included, I haven't done quite this cartoony level of animation. So it was really a lot of fun. And the last image I have is Ahsoka fighting Darth Maul. And, this was when we basically knew we were going to go back in and do some motion capture for this last fight, because we really wanted to get Ray Park involved. And I wanted to try and do one of the first shots of the lightsaber fight, which this turned out to be, and give that to our overseas team, because we had, there's a quality you get with motion capture where it's very, very smooth and it looks great and it works really well. But our animation style has its own sort of movement in Clone Wars, where we push things a bit more, we push poses, we make things a little faster, we make things, hit a little bit harder on the contacts and things. So I was trying to sort of take what we got from the motion capture and kind of enhance it and put it in our style, make Ahsoka jump a little higher, make Darth Maul dodge a little bit more, push things a little bit. And this was kind of the touchstone that we used for the rest of that fight. So for that reason, I thought it was really, kind of a big moment. And I was really, really proud of it. And now I'm going to hand it off to my partner in crime in Lucasfilm Animation over the last 10 plus years, Joel Aron.
Thank you very much, Keith. Thanks. And thanks everybody for watching and listening to all of us talk. My name is Joel Aron. I am the director of cinematography, lighting, and kind of like a visual effects supervisor as well. I've kind of worn many hats on my time at Lucasfilm Animation, but I've been with the company for 29 years. Next year is my big 30. It was my first job really in the industry, but I want to talk a little bit about my path on how I got to where I am now, because it's a little bit different from the other things that you've heard. I discovered Star Wars when I was a little kid, when the first movie came out. That kind of dates me and tells you how old I am, but I remember going home after Star Wars and having to draw everything that I saw in that movie. And that actually continues to this day. I tried to get my daughter to watch Star Wars last night. Didn't go over well. Anyway, so Wes Anderson movies instead. So what happened was I kind of came from a broken family. I did not have an education like others. I didn't have any sort of income to allow me to get any sort of the education that I wanted to get, even though I didn't know what I needed at the time. So I put myself into junior college of Marin, here in Marin County. And I, living on my own, discovered art history. I studied photography. I've been into photography since I've been 12 years old when I first got my first camera. Music appreciation and basic computer coding. I was always interested in computers, and it's those elements that are my tent poles for my career. And it's never left me. Even as a kid, I was reading Starlog magazine. I was getting Fangoria. I was obsessed with, just like Tori was, I was obsessed with learning the credits, who's in the credits of the movies. I want to know who did that. I would do research on them. When I was working in a restaurant, I saw Dennis Muren come in. I nearly buckled at my knees. But I worked in retail, selling high-end audio, anything I could, started at Baskin Robbins. I worked in restaurants, but I realized that at that point, I was a people person. I really love talking. I love communicating. I love engaging. I love being challenged in conversation, and I love critique. It all came from selling retail or working at a restaurant, being a waiter. I think that's a fantastic way to just get over any of the abilities you have into talking to people or having people yell at you because their sandwich was bad. So you definitely become, for me, a better artist when you can fuel it with something else from the outside. And that's kind of been my career this entire time. I taught myself everything I know. Now, that doesn't mean that I sat down with a book and just did it. I asked people. I wasn't shy. There was a guy that came into a stereo store one day and wanted to buy some stereo stuff, and he had a jacket on, a crew jacket for the Abyss. His name was Steve Williams. I went like a beeline right for him, and we're friends to this day, I think. Hi, Steve. And so that was it. That I realized that those people are real people. I can talk to them. I have this ability to get in at that level. So I saved up for a computer. I learned RenderMan. I bought the RenderMan guide. I read that book inside and out. I didn't know how to do half of the information that was in that book, but I started to understand it slowly. I read everything there was about computer lighting at the time. Ray tracing was brand new. Everything was just kind of coming up. There wasn't really a lot of computer anything going on. Like how Tori said she watched all that the anime. It's like I didn't have anything other than these DVDs I would rent that would be like 10 animated shorts. And I would look at how they were put together and try and do the same thing on my own. I would work all night long at home working 2 jobs. I worked at a movie theater. I worked at all these places to just get what I could to support my art. I was at the time selling computers, and I applied to ILM. It was Steve Williams who I met at SPAS, and he said, "Dude, you should just apply." And at the time, there was like a couple dozen people total working at ILM when I started. And the digital department was just coming up. John Knoll was just working on this new software called Photoshop. And we were all kind of learning all these, ways to deal with images. And so it was really great to take everything that I learned from teaching myself what I could and talking to people. I was a social butterfly around the floor. I knew when not to be annoying. I knew that when they left, their computer would be open. I'd ask, "Can I use your computer when you go home?" Sure. And I would stay at work, and I taught myself everything. I taught myself Alias, taught myself Softimage, all of that. And I had all those people around me that were some of my heroes. One guy worked on Tron. I would just listen to those stories all day long. Dennis Murin was in an office next to me, and Dennis would come in and just start talking stuff. It was really, really strange. But I ended up making that my career. I was promoted to CG supervisor in 2005. So that was a long time. I worked on over 30 feature films. So it's a lot of work. And the movies were usually back to back. And sometimes the movies would be 2-3 months. Sometimes the movie would be 6 months that you're working on it. But you're working these hours that are insane. Even still, if I wasn't working that long of a day, I would stay at work and I would work overnight. I would just continually teach myself that. To this day, I'm still learning software. I'm about to download something tonight. But it's something that I know is fueled by everything I've done in the past, which is this kind of I don't want to say aggressive, but it was a passionate drive. And I didn't really realize that until I moved over to Lucasfilm Animation. And when I got to Lucasfilm Animation, I came to Lucasfilm Animation to be honest, because I was really, I've been at ILM for so long. I had done everything. Everything was just kind of dwindling just a little bit for me. And I seemed to have lost my fire. And I think it was because everything was just getting so big and so heavy. And I'm a cheater. I love to cheat visually. That is what I learned from people like Bill George, people like Dennis Murin. They taught me how to fool the viewer into believing what they're seeing is real or entertaining or both. And I really owe it to Bill George and Scott Farrar, those visual effects supervisors that took me under their wing on set or behind the computer and taught me how to open my mouth, taught me how to explore the creativity that's inside of me, to explore not only that creativity, but how to fuel that creativity. And it was during that time at Lucasfilm Animation when I decided to start shooting portraits again and to start really trying to fuel again, just like I was when I was a kid. And I really feel that going to Lucasfilm Animation rewound 10 years, 15 years of my life. And every day is a new challenge. And because of those challenges, we make every episode better. And all throughout Clone Wars, all throughout Rebels, which was very difficult. We had to get that off the ground pretty fast. Everything like Keith was saying about Resistance, all these are new challenges that we did. And we work as a team to make that happen. And I think along the way, you work with people that can help you fuel your passion, do whatever. But what I feel is for me personally, the most important is surrounding yourself with that same type of energy. Whether you disagree with them, whether you agree with them, everything, you need that. You need that honest critique, that back and forth to create, to mold that thing that eventually becomes a show. And that's what we are at Lucasfilm Animation. Athena talked about our milestones that we have to hit. And it is a lot of work, but it is this cyclical process that we all love. And we really appreciate the effort that goes into all of it. And we really question all of it. Nothing is really just there because it's Star Wars. It's like, we listen to Dave will give us these tiny little notes that'll just completely course shift us in another direction, and it makes us better. George used to do the same thing for us. We'd be in an editorial review with George, and George would just move that shot over here and do that, and it would just make the episode so much better. And then Dave would look at all of us, and we'd be like, "Oh my God, he's a genius." And so it's a lot of that. You learn from your mistakes of not doing it right. You learn how to receive critiques. I think that's one of the biggest things I feel with our shows, be able to have somebody say something to you and go, "Okay, I need to supply that guy's vision." And that's how we all work. We are this team of understanding everything I've just kind of described. Now, my job, real quick, let's go to the next slide. I gotta talk fast. What's my timer say? I don't know. So early lighting tests, it's one of my favorite things to do. I love putting everything together. I love that we have this first image here. This is the first thing that we did. This is Keith posed Kanan on this bed, and I really wanted the look of Rebels to be a little bit different from Clone Wars. I wanted this kind of grainy film look. I really wanted it to complement the McQuarrie style that ended up in Star Wars. And so we always leaned towards that. And that was, part working with the art director, part working with Dave, Keith, Paul, everyone to just kind of dial in what we could get the most out of these images with. So we all worked as a team to make that happen. It's the same thing with like Resistance. That was a really good challenge, very difficult. Let's go to the next slide here. Now the other hat I wear is kind of like the lighting supervisor for the shots. And so here we get shots that come in all day long, and I'll see the shot and I will provide paint overs to help the story. Because that's really what it comes down to. We're not lighting this to be beautiful. We're not like, tweaking every single pixel to make it right. We really want to make sure the story's being read. You could see these textures aren't holding up on the right, but at the end of the day, it's all about making Kanan that silhouette. It's about the silhouettes, it's about the lighting. And so here, a simple paint over to just put a question in. Now, the last slide here is the effects. The other hat I wear. This is kind of where I come from. I was doing effects at ILM, from day one. And so what I learned, thanks to Bill George, was that I didn't have to trust the computer to do everything. And I'm still like that to this day. I will paint something to make it come alive. And that's happened on my very first week at Lucasfilm Animation, was that Dave wanted an effect off the back of a rooster tail for the Trespass episode in Clone Wars. And I drew it, and he's like, "Can you make that drawing come to life?" And that was it. I realized that, I cannot believe that my job now is to make my painting come to life. And that's what I did several times in several features back in the past, because the computer wasn't taking the right route. Bill George would pull me over and go, "Can you make a painting come to life?" And that's it. I've been like that to this day. All of our fire, all of our smoke, everything, our clouds, all hand painted, everything we paint. Nothing is we really take for granted. We really try and put everything into it. We try not to make it look like it's done by a computer. We want everything to be hand touched. It's like Keith was talking about the animation of the mocap of Maul, but I think it's very important to know that was still hand animated. There was still a lot of work that goes into making everything. So I'll shut up now. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna play our most recent trailer. These are all of our trailers. It's a really good kind of look at all of our shots, but this most recent trailer is from the Clone Wars that we just wrapped up, that we all worked passionately around the clock on to get perfect, because that's how Dave wanted it. And I feel very proud of this, as my entire team that I work with and everybody that you see here. So enjoy that.
I was hoping for Kenobi. Why are you here?
Yo, amazing guys. Wow, incredible. Man, come on, get out of here. Get out of here. That's awesome. Well done, you guys.
Thank you, Bobby.
Holy.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, everyone's freaking out about it. But
Joel, I miss your energy, man.
I miss your energy too, Juan. I miss the chats. I miss coming into that room and just all of us just talking.
Shut it up. But thank you guys so much for sharing that. That was amazing.
Yeah, and those clips were amazing. And just a quick reminder for those of you guys that follow the shows, those weren't new clips. They're just a highlight of some of the awesome work that everyone on this panel has worked on. So, and thanks for sharing, guys. That was great.
Thanks, guys. That was awesome. So yeah, no, and almost 8. We can get into the user Q&A. What do you think, Juan? Is that a good idea? Casually, I ask you.
We're
walking to the refrigerator. I'm like, hey, do you want to do the Q&A? And you're like, yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's kick us off, Bobby.
Okay. So for everybody, I'll kind of throw it out to the crew a little bit, but I'll kind of go around to see what everyone thinks. But the first question that we had from our community was, how has the pandemic impacted your work life? Loaded question.
Yeah.
I'm sure we all have different answers as well.
Sure.
But so obviously everything in the Bay Area happened for us around 3/17. So actually 3/16 is when they told us that we would be home. And at the time we thought that was going to be about 2 weeks. And then it ended up turning into where we are now. But prior to that, we kind of had an idea that we would be shutting down. So myself, along with Alex Spotswood, who's my associate producer, we went into one of our conference rooms, which we call Lothal. And we sat there for 3 hours trying to figure out a plan on how everybody would be able to function from home in the case that there was a shutdown. Okay. And we prepped so much so that when we were, like within 24 hours, we were already like up and running, which was pretty great. What's changed is obviously, it's really difficult to have certain meetings that you're used to having in person. Yep. Everything is so focused with, Zoom or Blue Jeans or Google Meets. Yep. And the one thing that I have found is trying to establish those parameters and making sure that you give yourself time to actually go to the kitchen and get something to eat, or give yourself time to actually go for a walk and have a breather. So I feel like we've become more efficient because we're always available, but at the same time, there aren't those parameters set to give yourself a break. So you're finding yourself doing 6 to 7 day weeks.
Right.
So in a way, more efficient, more productivity, yet you have to think about your health too.
Right. Yeah, that's a great answer, Athena. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
That's what we're feeling right now.
And I can't let it go without saying how amazing you are, Athena. I don't think it was 24 hours. I think it was like 10 hours. It was like literally Monday night. I'm like, well, I'll see you tomorrow. Like the next morning, we were online and working. You're incredible getting us going like that. It's really great.
Strong leadership to keep the ship going. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I'm glad you guys are still up and running.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question is for anyone who would like to answer, or all panelists. What helped you most in your career, and what steps would you take differently if you could do it all over again with the knowledge you have now?
What would I do different?
Joel, go.
Yeah,
okay. Honestly, I wish I was more passionate about filmmaking earlier in understanding where it all comes from. I think the technology and the pioneers of early filmmaking. I think it's very important. I'm trying to do that with my daughter right now, to just watch movies that represent the challenges of the time. And I'm really enjoying going through all that right now, like very early Hitchcock films, Truffaut films. Any director's first movie, they're great to watch. But I think I wish I would have studied more of that, because I'm finding myself now passionate about learning the stuff that I thought I knew but didn't.
Anyone else like to add to that?
It's sort of similar. The thing that helped me out the most was just everybody that I work with has been great about, I want to learn something. I want to learn how to do something new. Everybody's awesome about like, oh yeah, I'll show you how to do that. Yeah. And so I've just been able to build up my skill sets over the years in lots of different programs and techniques and everything like that. And I kind of wish I would have started that earlier in college, even just trying to like learn like what Joel did, like just learn more on my own and build that stuff up even more.
ABC, so I'm going to call you ABC. So we have like mutual friends. I'm at Disney Plus and television. And so they're working with you on like projects. So like I think what do you think ABC for VizDev portfolios would you look for? Oh,
well, VizDev is kind of a small part of what we do because we don't have a dedicated VizDev department. We'll do that at the beginning of a show and then everybody will go on to be production artists. So it's more important to kind of have more production ready stuff in your portfolio than VizDev. But that said, with VizDev, it's always really important if you're going to show characters to show 3 to 4 versions of that character that are vastly different that still fit in the box. So not just, the same drawing of the same face, the same body, like different body types, different faces, different costumes, just try to think outside the box as much as humanly possible. And have it still fit the kind of like the design brief. And other than that, it's really great to see 3D in the portfolio because especially if we're working on a 3D show, we're a very 3D centric company. All of the concept artists use 3D artwork. So it's good to kind of see keyframes, color timing, characters, vehicles, sets, because also we're not specific artists. We don't have just a character artist or just a set artist. Everybody does a little bit of everything. So a very diverse portfolio. And then, yeah, I'd like to see the process. And like I said, like if you're going to do a vehicle or a set, just a very wide variety, totally different, totally like consider it like a problem and you're going to give it as many different solutions as possible or as different solutions as possible. So we like to see that type of stuff.
Can I expand on that a little bit, Amy? Because visual development is our most popular, like applied, like thing like that we have going through Rise Up Animation. So, like in those terms, I mean, what would you say, being where you are now, and then kind of giving yourself advice of like what to put in your portfolio, like breaking in, what would you say to yourself?
I would have more, like I said, like kind of like give myself a problem and show a wider variety of solutions to that one problem, 3 to 4 different ones, because I always sort of just kind of came in and I'm like, nah, here's my ship. But yeah, I think if you're kind of throwing a lot of stuff at the wall to see what sticks. So you kind of need to be able to like work quickly, roughly, loosely, and come up with a lot of different ideas and kind of show your creativity and your flexibility.
Got it. Yeah, got it. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad, I got one for you since you're supervising director. And this one's story specific. So because you have a 3D storyboarding process, what type of work would you want to see in a portfolio for somebody interested in a story position at Lucasfilm?
That's a great question. We do love to see 3D work, but honestly, and maybe I'm just so old school, but we love to see drawings. We love to see rough drawings, rough thumbnails. It's like I always find, and we talk about it a lot when we're looking at portfolios, that there's a lot of great tools out there, and people can definitely put together slick work from home in an amazing way, which is awesome. And we don't discount that. We look for that stuff, but really, it's those little doodles and those quick ideas and seeing the process that leads to the slick work is one thing that I look for the most, because that's what our process is. Even though we do have previs tools that we use and they're awesome and fancy and proprietary and born out of the mind of George Lucas himself. It's incredible.
I miss that software, man.
It's so good. It's so good.
I don't know if I can mention it, but yeah.
A lot of people listening on.
It's really great. I mean, even for me, coming from a 2D background, getting into the tool that we use, you can start making shots like day one, and it takes a while to get master it and really work on it. I mean, it's, you know, like Joel, you're talking about like learning and looking at films. We talk about it all the time. We're always looking at films as a group and breaking them down and having a movie of the week and talking about it. And they're not always classic. Sometimes it's just fun, crazy stuff, but we're trying to get to the heart of the process of the storytelling through our 3D tool. But we use a lot of thumbnails or shot beats, or we act things out. We're just like doing whatever we can to get rough with it to tell that story, because we do. And I only mentioned it a little bit when I was talking. We, you know, for one episode that might be 22 minutes, we will create, I don't even know how many hours of, maybe not hours, but how much footage we create as we're just crafting and fighting on this awesome, you know, never say die schedule that we get, which is incredible, Athena, but it's like, you got to get it done in a certain amount of time. The deadlines drive everything. So, you know, hopefully I'm not meandering on this too much, but really it's like, I think that's why the rough drawings and the rough ideas, and you can see how someone has translated that into either a finished piece of work, or you just see what their thought process is. It has a lot to do with when we're looking to hire somebody.
Awesome. Thank you.
Do you think I can add to that?
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
yeah. I think just being like malleable also to learn like the software. Like Brad said, I don't think 3D is necessarily a requirement when wanting to apply as a story artist for Lucasfilm. Like just make stories, that are really important to you. And you know, usually like really passionate storytelling kind of for me personally, it resonates for me. Like something that can like that is told clearly and rings like really true to like who you are, like is something that I take notice when looking at portfolios. Not the 3D, you know, not the super technical stuff. So, you know, just keep making stories, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's great, Nate. That's awesome. Does anyone have any other notions on that?
Well, to chime in just on that
yeah
about like, you know, looking at these portfolios or reels, and one example I can give you is that for my piece of the pie in our production is you know, we had an opportunity to bring interns in a year or so ago, and I looked at all these portfolios and I saw a lot of computer, you know, everything computer. And I narrowed it down to one amazing young woman who was an artist. She knew how to draw and paint, and she knew how to see light, and she had a good personality. And it's like, it's amazing that, you know, you think that you need all these skills to get in. You do need them. You need to know what you're doing, but you also need to have show that passion for creating art. And to not let the computer do it. So that you know, it's different for a storyteller from a storyboard artist, you know, what we do, but it all applies, because we talk about how we're a family, and it's important that we bring somebody in that actually understands the artistic approach and not let the computer do it. And to comment on something Nate said about, you know, to work with the software is like, don't fight it. As soon as you fight the software, you'll hate it. Just start with one small little thing and move from there. That's you know, that will start to build your character, make you an artist.
And just quickly from an animation perspective on it, just real quick to chime in, you know, one thing that sometimes we'll see in reels is like someone could put together 2.5 minutes of animation. And, you know, one thing I always tell people is that you're really only as good as what is the worst thing on your reel. So you really want to make sure to put just your best stuff. Like, I would much rather see 25 seconds of amazing material than 2.5 minutes of some good stuff, some stuff that's not quite as strong, and then some really good stuff again. So think about, like, whenever you're putting something out there, make sure it's your best work. Don't think that there's a timeline you have to hit or a specific thing. You know, if there's a 15-second piece of animation and somebody does it really, really well, I know that person can animate and I have no problem with it. Compared to if there's other stuff on there where it's like, oh, the texture, that looks weird. You know, concentrate on what you really want to concentrate on, and, you know, you'll do great.
Can I add a little snippet about design? A lot of these portfolios, when people are applying, a lot of our jobs are visual problem solving. So we're solving these things, and a lot of your submissions when you're applying for a job, you're showing your thinking. So like what Amy was saying, it's like a math sum. It doesn't help to just show the answer or a pretty picture. A lot of these start blending together when you see pretty picture after pretty picture. We want to see the whole equation. We want to see how you got to that step, because that's going to be your day to day. That is actually going to be your job, is all these little steps of getting to a goal. And it's, if you show that to us, we don't have to ask for that information. We don't have to go digging or looking, searching for you on Google to try and find this equation. If you show it to us, it'll definitely help you, because we can see part of your thinking process, and that's what we're hiring. We're not hiring you for the piece of art you've already done. We're hiring for the piece that you will do for us, whichever department you're in. So if you show your thinking, that's super helpful to us, and we'll get you ahead.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Yeah, that's great.
Can I add some? Oh, no.
Go ahead, Tori.
Oh, okay.
Tori, you're like chomping. Go ahead.
Tori, come on.
Okay, I guess as somebody who was recently hired and who not long ago was applying a lot, I actually experienced a ton of rejection. I remember portfolio day, I guess at one point I was just like, I'll just like put out what I want, not necessarily what other people are looking for. And I did receive backlash for it. I was told my work was like too unpalatable by a lot of recruiters, like a little like too, it's like, you know, but that was me on the page, you know, and like, you know, it was, and eventually, you know, I was noticed for who I was and like my voice as an artist. And not necessarily because I was trying to like conform to something, because I guess if you want to like the work you put out there, I think should reflect your interests above all, you know, and then what will like the other things will come to you, I think, if you know, if it is like the best that you can put out, you know.
Yeah. Someone was gonna chime in. I heard a voice. No. Okay. So how are you guys feeling? It's 8:09. We've stretched our time a little bit, but I'll throw it out to you guys of like, how are you guys feeling?
This is my last meeting of the day.
Yeah, I'm done today. So
Same.
There's a beer in the fridge that I will go get after this.
I should have had it earlier. Is it okay if I throw a few questions at you then?
Yeah, of course.
So you know, for a lot of people, I had a question of like, how does one overcome the overwhelming sense of on the question of faith, what helps keep you going when times are rough or you experience doubt or hard times or rejection?
Well, I'll answer that since I talked a lot about rejection letters that I received, I guess.
Kellogg, go for it.
You know, I think for me, it was really just a dream. You know, I really, like I said, when I saw those dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, that's just what I wanted to do. And I wasn't going to let anything stop me, no matter who said it, no matter who told me I couldn't do it. You know, I knew in my heart that it was something that's what I wanted to do. And I was going to make it happen some way. And like I said, I didn't get in as a character animator right away. You know, it took going a different route, you know, doing some other jobs first and working my way there. But I think if you have a goal and you have a dream that that's what you want to pursue, just keep working at it. And I will say, I mean, since I'm so incredibly fortunate now, you know, I've worked with incredible people, incredible directors, you know, but it's just been, now it's honestly, it's not a job. Like I get to go play every day, and it's really one of the greatest things I'm so thankful for.
Yeah, Keith, I think I might have you beat actually, because
I don't know.
A few years before I got my job at LucasArts, I actually applied for a position at the ILM model department because I was in industrial design, so I was building a lot of stuff. Right, I sent my stuff in, and I get my rejection letter. And I'm like, okay, fine. They don't want me. A week later, I get another rejection letter. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I know. A week after that, I get a third rejection letter. And I'm like, okay. I ended up getting 4 rejection letters from one application.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
It's like, all right, I get it now, all right?
Yeah.
I think what happened was they passed my application from like department to department to department. And every department said, forget it. We don't want you. But actually, I'll tell you one other thing, which is it really, I think, is important, no matter how talented you are, I think it's really important that you go the extra mile, you do the extra work so that luck finds you. So if you remember my presentation, luck found me a couple of times. And actually, when I got my job at LucasArts, I look back and I realized there were 4 decisions I made that at the time I had no idea how important and pivotal those decisions were. And I easily could have made the wrong choice and I would not be here today. And I don't have time to go over all 4, but one of them was SIGGRAPH 95, where I got hired. I had 11 interviews all lined up before I got to SIGGRAPH. Great. I get to SIGGRAPH, right? And I had my interview with ILM lined up, Pixar, Rhythm and Hues, all that kind of stuff. There was a little flyer on the wall, like a Xerox thing with a stormtrooper head, and it said, LucasArts wants you. And I didn't even know what LucasArts was. I was like, what's LucasArts? And then I looked it up. I was like, video games? I don't know if I want to do video games. I want to work at ILM. And then I read the flyer, and I would have to take a taxi to another hotel across the city to drop off my demo reel. And I'm like, oh man, do I want to do this? I don't know. I got 11 interviews already lined up. I don't need another one. I ended up deciding to do it. I took the taxi. I went over to the hotel. There was a table with like a huge stack of like demo reels on it. I was like, yeah, whatever. Threw it on. 4 o'clock that afternoon, I get the call from LucasArts. Come on in. We want to talk to you. And that was it. And I so easily could have not done that extra step to get my demo reel in front of them. So
I'd like to say
yeah.
something to what Paul was saying about extra step, because one thing that we all need to be aware of is if you search for if you're chasing your passion, you have to be okay with quote unquote setbacks. For example, so for me, I was in licensing for 4 years and I became a coordinator, but then I was so interested in visual effects, I decided to move to visual effects. But because I had no experience, I couldn't walk in as a coordinator. I had to walk in as a PA. So you have to be okay with pay cuts and title cuts because it's not about that. So then I was in visual effects for 6 years, became a VFX producer. Then I told myself, I really want to get into animation. Well, there's no way that they were going to hire me in animation as a producer without that kind of experience. So once again, title cut, pay cut. You have to be okay with that if you're chasing your dream. So I'd say don't get too hung up on titles and such. Just make sure that you're constantly pushing yourself to become the best that you can in whatever department you're interested in.
Yeah, and on that, what Athena's saying, what Paul's saying, what we're all saying here is that that sense of failure, that dread of not getting hired, or what I'm doing isn't getting me anywhere. You need to make sure you're having fun doing it. And I responded to somebody in the chat about like that same thing. It's like, I have this racer mentality that it's like, just because you crash doesn't mean your career's over. You got to figure out why you crashed and then don't do it again and go faster in that turn, right? So you do that by having fun. You must have fun doing what you're doing. And if you are not having fun doing what you're doing, slow down and have fun with one little thing. You know, when I talk about learning software, I'm going to have fun. Like the other day I was doing something I can't tell you about. And I ended up working till 2 o'clock in the morning because I was having fun doing some stupid little thing, you know, but it was so fun. And we see that, like when we talk about our reels, you could tell the people that are doing it for fun. So if you are getting depressed, if you're getting sad, that it's just not happening for you, try having fun with it. Try having fun with it. Don't give it up. Don't ever give it up. Just find the fun in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What do you think, Juan?
Let's throw one more out there and see how we feel after. Yeah?
Yeah.
All righty. We got a question for the ladies on the panel. So, advice or words of wisdom for women in the industry?
I would say if you're in a male-dominated industry, which to me, like I've never really felt it that way, me personally, don't let it get to you. I feel like if you go in with the knowledge and the education and the passion to do it, I think you're fine. And also, part of the reason why I wanted to go back to Lucasfilm is because of that culture, because of the people. Such a supportive family. And I can say that I'm lucky that I didn't feel that kind of sense of, oh, you're in a male-dominated industry. And I felt like it was okay, just as long as you have that confidence and trust in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna back up what Athena said. It's at Lucasfilm. I've been maybe really lucky, but it's just everybody respects everybody else, no matter who they are, just as a person. So it was really great to kind of feel just included, like everybody else is included. And I never really thought about it that way. You kind of just think about it as a way of like, you're just somebody trying to make something cool, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, I do feel very supported at Lucasfilm, but I also understand that it's probably not like that in a lot of the industry. And I guess just as a general thing, and what's helped me is to like form support groups with other marginalized folks to like, you know, validate each other's struggles, you know, because they do exist, and you know, just to know that you have support that way too. And I found that really useful as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, Tori, have you had like, you're relatively new, as I am too as well, to the TV space. Like what are the challenges? Like, do you think like they're coming in, or do you think there are challenges coming in as like a minority like artist, you know, in that space?
I think it's not only like the challenges I face, because I also like I think am aware a lot more of like things, and like also being in spaces with more marginalized folks makes me more aware of like other things that are happening all throughout the industry that like need to be better, you know, and like so I guess like it affords me a lot more perspective about a lot of things as well. And yeah.
No, you can speak on that. I mean, like Rise Up Animation was just sort of formed around the idea that we are trying to sort of present an opportunity for more, you know, like diverse and inclusive, like, you know, like people of color or anyone else that can get into the industry that didn't necessarily have the means to do that. And then hopefully open up the door to have them, once you sort of teach them the tools of like breaking into the industry, they can get into the industry and they can get their foot in the door, and then that kind of opens the door for like more inclusive and diverse stories like happening on the up and up. And
Right.
that's kind of like what we're kind of like hoping for. I mean, we know we're not going to change it overnight, but like it starts from the ground up, and it starts from like educating and inspiring and encouraging, you know, people that don't necessarily have the money or means to do that. So that's this whole movement. So thank you guys so much for like contributing to that. So, yeah. Oh, shoot, I got it. I kind of got on the spiel a little bit. Sorry, but yeah, but yeah, I'll throw it back to you guys. But what do we have? Oh, we're at 8:21. Are you guys okay to go to 8:30? Is that okay?
Might as well.
Might as well.
Absolutely.
Do it.
Juan, what do you think?
Stop it now. Let's just go.
29 and a half.
8:30. Let's do it. Let's make it count.
Let's do it. Let's do it. 9 minutes lightning round. Go ahead.
They have such valuable information for us all.
Dude,
It's our double.
you guys have been amazing so far. But go ahead, Juans. I call you Juans.
Juan.
Juan.
So when I started at Lucasfilm, like I was a Star Wars fan, you know, like most of us. But when I started there, my mom started calling me Obi-Wan. So
One Solo.
Amazing.
Yeah, and that was another one. Yeah,
That was the other one.
Actually, Juan, I think it would be interesting for everybody to hear your career trajectory and how
Yeah.
you work.
Because your interview, I still remember to this day. As an intern. As an intern.
That's
Yep.
great.
all right, I'll keep it quick because this is about you guys. I'll keep it real quick. So
You're part of it.
So when I was a kid, I always wanted to be, I wanted to be an animator when I was a kid because that's all I knew. You know, I saw cartoons. I loved it. I loved to draw, but I didn't really know how that could happen. Like, you know, I asked my parents. They didn't know. They didn't even really know what that was, and they didn't really know how to guide me to that. So it didn't really feel like a reality for me. Like the people that I saw on screen behind the scenes, it just didn't look like me, you know, and it just didn't feel like my world, right? So then I went along and I just kind of just went with the flow. I was always involved in art, whatever new technology there was, I got to learn it. Photoshop came around. I was like, oh, I got to learn Photoshop. I was in high school. And so my friend told me about Photoshop. And he's like, yeah, I got a friend, he's in college and they're learning Photoshop. And I was like in the 10th grade. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So we crashed this class at the local community college and I learned Photoshop until the teacher found out I wasn't enrolled. But he was really impressed that we were respectful, we were quiet, we were just there to learn. So he was like, tell you what, as long as, you know, we have empty seats, you guys are welcome to learn. So I learned Photoshop. And because of that, after high school, I started doing graphic design. And I was like, oh, wow, I was working in an office and like, this is cool. So it was an internship and then it led to a job. But, you know, I did that for 5 years and it's not where my heart was. I've never forgot about working in animation, you know? So then I quit that, went to school, Art Institute in San Francisco. And then I graduated there with a best portfolio. And I was like, sweet, I got this, you know, work at Pixar, right? Or wherever, you know? No, that was not the case. It's competitive. So I applied to several companies and got tons of rejections, did a couple of freelance gigs here and there, odd stuff. My first job was modeling and animating people's invention ideas. Like this guy had an invention idea for sprinklers on the rooftop in case your house catches fire, and I had to animate that. But anyway, it took 1.5 years, and I started taking classes at Animation Mentor, and because of that, qualified for an internship at Disney at Lucasfilm Animation. That's where I met these wonderful people here, and I started off as an intern, a production intern, under Athena's wing, and taking notes, making copies, and you know, Athena knew that I had a passion for art. And so she says, she pulled me aside. She goes, you know, I know you have a passion for art. And if that's the direction you want to pursue, I support it, but you have to learn this on your own, right? So like, all right, cool. So I did that. At the Lucasfilm, they have this online resources where you can learn tutorials and stuff. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it. And then so I would go off and maybe on some nights I would stay late and I would do a tutorial. And then on 2 days later I would do another one. Next week I would stay maybe 2 or 3 times. And I followed that pattern. And then like months later, Athena asked me, how's it going? And I was like, I realized I wasn't where I needed to be. And so from that moment, it just became a rule, like every night until I get it, until it happens. And so I stayed after work and I worked on my 3D story reel. And before you knew it, I was a part of the team. And I spent a little over 4 years on at Lucasfilm, part of the story team, and it was an incredible experience. And after Clone Wars, then I went off to work at Disney Animation. And that's my story, real quick, in a nutshell.
Hey, great, man. I will. We're closing out, guys. I want to be respectful of your time. I will close out something that we can all think about tonight as we go to bed as well, and we can also answer it tonight. But what advice did you get that helped you most in your career, do you think?
Keep
I haven't
chasing
really-
the dreams, no matter what.
Go in order of the slides. Let's go that way. No?
Everyone's slides are different, so.
Oh, no, I mean our slideshow. We start with Athena.
Athena.
Yep. What advice helped you most in your career, Athena, do you think?
Chasing the dream and just following your heart and never quitting.
Mm-hmm. Right on. All right. Keith, what do you think?
I mean, Athena just said them all basically as the ones that I was thinking. But I would say, I mean, I think it's just keep going for it. Like, don't give up. And when someone tells you you can't do something, if you really believe that you can, go for it. Do what you think is in your heart is the right thing to do, and what gives you that passion day after day, to strive to be, the best, whatever you can be, whether it's in this field or another field.
Yeah. I think some of the best advice could be to ignore the bad advice. It's the advice that's telling you to do something that you don't particularly want to do as a career. Be a doctor, be a dentist, but that's not what I want to do. So it's to actually ignore that advice and trust yourself and trust what you want to do for a living.
Some people do want to be doctors, though, Andre.
No, it's not allowed. They actually don't. Statistically speaking, no, they don't.
Nobody does.
Yo, amazing. Joel, what do you think?
I'll tell you, I just have to echo the words of Bill George to me, who pulled me outside during Deep Impact and said to me, you need to follow your heart and you need to have fun with what you're doing. And if you feel that there is something that you can bring to what you're seeing to make the overall picture better or to make the team better, you need to open your mouth and say it. You do not need to be afraid that what you're saying is going to be wrong or stupid. You just need to start that ball rolling, to present your creative energy by talking in a room. To this day, I still do it in meetings with everyone. I will just fire up and say something, and if anything, it starts conversation. And that is so critical. I think I talked about a lot of other points, when I was talking, just to inspire. But honestly, that's the one. That's the point in space that clicked for me.
Right. That's awesome, man. That's awesome, Joel. Yeah. What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be like a new answer because I mean, really,
no, it's fine.
I mean, you gotta love it. I mean, I think it goes two ways too. Like if you don't love it, it's probably not for you in any field. But at the same time, if you're trying to break in and you love it so much, you are so far down the road. And it's like, it's not that easy, obviously, but that, then you're on the right path because you need that. And and really, I know we've said a little bit of it as well, but I can't say enough that attitude is so important when we're talking about portfolio reviews. I mean, really, there's so many talented people that a lot of times when we hire someone, it comes down to the attitude, and that is so important. There will be times when we hire people that maybe their portfolios weren't as good as other people that applied, but their attitude was best, and it's a no-brainer every time.
Right. That's awesome. What do you think, Amy?
Actually, tags right off of what Brad said. One of my first days at Lucas, one of my new friends took me aside and said, hey, if you want to be really good at this job, it's divided into 3 parts, and those 3 parts are completely equal. And one is your creativity, one is your skills, like your talent, and the other one is your attitude. So you have to be really good at all 3 of those things to be really successful, and not one is more important than the other. So it does go off that, like, not the best portfolio is not always going to win the race. It's like you have really original, awesome, creative ideas that'll put you ahead. If you're a great team player with a great attitude, that'll put you ahead. So I've always kind of carried that one with me.
Wow. So, Paul?
I think maybe taking your time to figure out what you really want to do. I saw some people make some comments while I was speaking about, why were you studying chemistry, or why were you studying industrial design? And it's because I thought I wanted to do those things at the time, but after a while I realized I didn't really want to do chemistry. It all turned into math. And then in industrial design, it's like, I'm okay, but I'm not going to be good enough to get the job at a place where I really want to be. And all during that time, I always loved Star Wars. I always wanted to work at Star Wars. But, at the university, there's no course or no major in Star Wars, right? So it took a while, and that's okay. Take your time to figure out what you really want to do, because you don't want to get stuck in something that you really don't like.
Yeah. Right. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well done. Tori, what do you think?
I guess what really valuable advice I got was to remember what you love and be authentic to yourself, and always hold on to that. And as long as you just be true to what you want to do and pursue, I think that will that will be good for you. I think, just do the things that bring you joy also.
How do we do that, Tori? No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
so easy.
That's so easy. No, that's awesome. Thanks, Tori. And then Nate, my boy.
Oh man, yeah, I was kind of thinking about this one. This one, might be a little long-winded, but is to be open to any opportunity. There was a point where I got pretty disillusioned about being an animator, and I was actually going to study an animation mentor. Like, I was just like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do animation mentor. And then my girlfriend, who is my wife now, she became pregnant, and I was like, I can't drop that much money to go to animation school. Like, that was just not an option anymore. So I pretty much was like, all right, I guess I can't do this right now. And then I took a storyboarding class with Rad Seacrest of Kippo fame.
Mm-hmm.
Rad. And
Rad, what up, Rad? If you're hearing that, he's not
Rad. And he looked at my drawings and he was like, "You should be a storyboard artist." And I was like, "Okay." And I was like, it kind of took me back a little bit. I was just like, I just kind of took this class out of a whim. I didn't really know what I was getting into. I like story artists. I like Bill Pete. I like guys like Alex Wu. I love those drawings. So I was like, hey, let me take it. Maybe there's something to this. And he he kind of just looked at my work, and you know Rad's kind of a robot.
Yeah.
Kind of a laser focused individual. And he just kind of looked at my work and was like, you should do storyboards.
Okay.
And I was
yeah.
Oh, okay. And that was pretty much my kickstart into a totally different career path. And I guess the point that I'm getting at is that that can happen. And you kind of have to be open to that. You know, one one door closes, another opportunity kind of comes up. Like, I have to give a huge amount of credit to
totally agree. But 8:37. I don't mean to cut it short, you guys, but thank you guys so much for joining us. This was amazing. We're honored to have you at Rise Up Animation. Everybody in the attendees, thank you so much. Really, really, guys, we really appreciate your time and effort and just kind of coming out and spilling your guts and sort of sharing what you do from day to day. That really means a lot to us, and it really means a lot to the community. So I think the only thing we need to do is take a group picture. So let's do it. Okay, you guys ready?
Yes.
All right, 3. Wait, Lisa, Tracy, Laura. Unless you guys are asleep. They're all asleep. Okay.
I'm here.
Let's assume they're asleep. Turn on your video and then we'll take a group picture for posterity. Laura. Okay, thank you guys so much. All right, 3, 2, 1. Smile at the camera. That's awesome. Thank you guys so much. This is amazing.
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for staying up late with us.
Thank you guys
Thanks so much.
Bye.
And thank you attendees and thank you panelists. That's awesome. And this is me meeting you guys for the first time forever, except for one, but and Nate. But thank you guys.
Thank you,
I
Bob.
really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
Thank you, Bobby.
Bobby, appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank
take
you
care.
so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night,
All
everybody.
right, bye-bye.
Good luck, everybody.
Take care.